All right. All right. Yeah, there we are. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. My name is Robert Winfrey, and thank you all so very, very much for being here. I'm having a bit of a week. Not great, but hopefully spending 90-ish minutes with you all here will increase the mood a little bit. But uh, yeah, So, what do we got on the agenda for this evening? Well, UFC Fight Night 269, Emmett versus Vallejos was last night. We will review all of that. Wound up being, one of the better events all year, pound for pound at least. I was talking through that with one of my brothers, and shocking how this is one of the better ones. That's, again, a little weird. Not sure I like that. We will be also previewing UFC Fight Night 270. That is Evloev versus Murphy this coming Saturday. Starts fairly early in the morning, I think 11 my time. So they're doing it more prime time for the London crowd because they're back in London for that one, and the Paramount deal allows them that flexibility. So that's okay. We will give that the full preview. It's not a terrible card. It's weird. There's a lot of meh, if that's not to make it across with just a sound. But the main event's legitimately very, very good. And we'll talk news. There was the press conference for Rousey versus Carano, and a lot of stuff was said there. The UFC dumped a bunch of fights on us, so yeah, we got stuff to talk about. So anything, of course, you can do to interact is always appreciated, like the stream or the video after the fact, if that's what you're doing. Leave a comment if you're so inclined. If you're here live, I know I go live at the worst times here in the States, but my schedule is my schedule. I don't know what to tell you guys. But leave a comment. Happy to interact with everyone. Switch that real fast. To the extent that I can. So that's what we got. And I think we're ready to jump into it, shall we? So UFC Fight Night 269. Again, Emmett versus Vallejos. How do we do prediction wise? That's where we start. Not bad. 11-3. I think the only change I made was, yeah, I woke up the next morning and went, really? You picked Sam Hughes, you sleep deprived fool? So I went with Piero Rodriguez over Sam Hughes. Everything else we went with. What should I have gotten right that I got wrong? So what did I get wrong? Kutalaba. Iwan Kutalaba, the last couple of fights, man, he's demonstrated a real turnaround. We'll get to him more specifically when we get to that fight, but he's not what he used to be as a fighter, for the better. I need to give him a lot more credence and see a lot less. Anders over Tavares. I would think I was always going to pick Tavares there. The main thing I should have given more credit to, the smaller cage favors the way Eric Anders fights. Is just kind of how that worked out. And Oralby over Curtis. Yeah. I did not expect Oralby to be that smothering. I expected him to strike a lot more with Curtis than he did. And to his credit, he found the right way to win. Did make for a terribly exciting fight, but what are you going to do? So, yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, that was it as far as what I got wrong. I think probably the only one I should have got right was really the Kutalaba one. I mean, I was always going to take Curtis kind of on the flyer. Turns out the odds were right on the money with that one, by the way. I was just I don't think I was ever going to accurately predict it. I should have given Umar Sy a lot less credit. He's not very good. And Kutalaba, again, whatever team he's with, he moved out to Vegas. I don't know if he's with Extreme Couture or somebody else out there, but whatever team he's with now really has him kind of dialed in and doing good work. So credit to him. Definitely an improvement. All right, so with the predictions, where did that leave me? So 70-20 year so far. little bit back on track towards 400 correct predictions. Boy, that 267 card really did throw a monkey wrench in my plans. I clawed my way back to it, but I have to do better this upcoming one. I have to do better, but that's where we are. So, yeah, as for the fights themselves, let's get into this main event. Dude, Kevin Vallejos ran over Josh Emmett, TKO'd him 333 of the first. Never all that close. Look, I said it in the preview, like Emmett's dangerous, but very predictable at this point. And predictability is not a really great thing. Moreover, he's kind of tailor made for guys who are boxing centric to chew up. And Vallejos is a very, very solid boxer for MMA. Added some elbows. He just got Emmett backing up, and Emmett's not very good off the back foot. Had him swinging at air because Emmett swings hard with everything. I mean, there was one like near the finish after he hurt Emmett. Emmett kind of wall walked, came back up, and just swung for the fences, missed badly, and overswung so much he actually like fell down to a knee. I'm not going to kill him for it, but that's kind of the story of that fight. Really good finishing. Vallejos got him up against the fence, got him kind of doubled over. Some nice downward elbows to the kidney. Good vertical punch because he went straight fist instead of horizontal. Vertical punch right to the side of Emmett's head there. Then one under the arm as he was falling. Kevin Vallejos is real good. He's also taking this kind of seriously. There was some sound of him during fight week where he said, I'm a little unsure about being rushed this much. I don't want to be a guy who, goes to the title level real quick, wins the belt, defends it maybe once, and then flames out. I want to be a guy who, when I get there, I stay there for a while, which is admirable. I don't know that the UFC is going to let him do a slow development because he just beat a fairly highly ranked guy. And they kind of don't want to, they don't like slow playing as a general rule. There's some guys they can get away with, especially if you're very early in your career, they'll let you kind of slow play. But I don't think Vallejos is in that spot. And frankly, featherweight needs cleaning out. You've got Yair Rodriguez and like Brian Ortega, and the other guy's still there. Let's see. I need your rankings. Featherweight. Yeah, Rodriguez is still taking up space. Brian Ortega is still ranked there, despite the fact that I don't think he's even going to be in the division all that much longer, given his weight cutting issues. Aljamain Sterling's not exactly a spring chicken. So there's some guys there that he can face to kind of, again, clear out some of the top of the weight class, which is good. Like, that's a good thing. He's young. If one of those happens to be a setback, as long as it's not a devastating loss, I think it's clearly recoverable. He's got sharp hands. He's a little vulnerable to kicks, and he's a little vulnerable to elbows. That's kind of how John Silva beat him on the Contender Series. Like, at range, especially boxing range, Vallejos was doing really good work. So Silva figured, okay, I'm going to, kick at long range and then crash with elbows. And that kind of threw Vallejos off and led to Silva getting that win. So there's still things to improve with Vallejos, but there's every reason for optimism. I mean, he stopped Josh Emmett in 3.5 minutes. That's a big deal. Even a, older, slightly diminished version of Emmett, that's nothing to sneeze at. So as far as who you should fight next, you've got options. Again, Brian Ortega's there. Yair Rodriguez. Arnold Allen. We got a few of these guys that like have fights. Steve Garcia's fighting. Diego Lopez. He could fight maybe the loser of that. But there's a lot of guys that we kind of have to see fight in the near future. I saw some people saying we could do a rematch with him and Silva, and I don't need that right now. Like, they're both working towards title contention. Like, their time will come. We don't need to rush that. So that's kind of where he is, but he's going to be fighting top 10 guys now when Brian Ortega is number 10. So that's one I'd be curious about. And that's kind of his lot at the moment. So good win, very good win. And curious to see what he does next. Co-main event, Jillian Robertson beat Amanda Lemos via unanimous decision, 29-28. Robertson has pretty good overall grappling. She's got pretty good takedowns too. Like they're not super explosive, but they're very effective. I think the big knock on Robertson is just she doesn't have power. Like everything she lands seems to do nothing. She's one of the few women who will like actually try to engage in ground and pound, and she had some nice, elbows to the kidney and whatnot, but like there's just not a lot of. I give her credit for being like for actually trying to finish. I heard somebody, I forget who it was, say this last week that a lot of women's MMA fights right now feel like busy work. I don't mean like watching them. I mean like what are they doing? Like who's trying to actually end the fight? Who's trying to inflict maximum damage versus who's just staying busy? And there's a lot of busy work. I think it was Danny Segura. It's a fair observation. I think it's accurate. Um, Robertson is one of the few who doesn't do that. She's there to try and finish you. She's not a strong striker. She's a good grappler. She actually will engage in ground and pound. It's just not terribly damaging, and that's really unfortunate. But she's on a 5-fight winning streak. Unfortunately, she's unlikely to get the next title shot. You could give it to her, but we don't know exactly what's up with Zhang Weili at the moment, and that's kind of the elephant in the room at strawweight. Dern won the vacant belt because Zhang dropped it to move up. If Zhang just coming back down to strawweight, she should get a shot at reclaiming the belt that nobody beat her for. In which case, Robertson's going to have another fight. But if she does have to have another fight, it's going to be someone like Tatiana Suarez, or Suarez is fighting, right? But somebody like that. In fact, how does the top of strawweight shake out at the moment? Strawweight. Yeah, Suarez is fighting somebody. I can't remember who. But Robertson's going to be fighting someone like, against Suarez or Virna Jandiroba, because you just beat number 5. So assuming no one ahead of her moves a lot, you got Dern as champion, Zhang basically champion in recess as far as I'm concerned, because she would just ruin Mackenzie Dern. Suarez, who's fighting someone, I think she's fighting Jandiroba, but Jandiroba at 3 and then Yan Xiaonan at 4. Those are the only people who are going to be ranked ahead of Jillian Robertson at the moment. So when we know what's up with Zhang, we'll have a better idea of what to do here. If they're going to make Zhang have a fight before she fights for the belt, one, I don't think they should, but the UFC does, what they want to do. Robertson versus Zhang, I don't like her chances, but that's the kind of fight she's earned. As for Lemos, she's just a little over the hill and predictable. Had a good first round, just couldn't keep it up. Featherweight, Jose Delgado defeated Andre Fili via split decision, 29-28. Fun enough little fight here. Delgado was doing really good work in the first, and then he kind of got dropped with a right hand in the pocket. Fili just kind of did what he always does. He's loose, he's lanky, he's got decent pop, but he can be out wrestled, and he's got an okay takedown. But I mean, one of the big things about Delgado here was he gave up takedowns late in the round, which is never a great thing to do. It shouldn't be as, potentially damaging as to your chances of winning a round as it kind of gets made out to be, especially by commentary. But it was. So he can also be out wrestled because Delgado got him down a few different times. Like Fili's just okay. I think it's almost like in his contract, though, that anytime he goes the distance, at least one judge is going to score a fight for him. He has only His last loss via unanimous decision was like 3 years ago to Nathaniel Wood, and before that was in 2020 to Bryce Mitchell. Like the dude always finds like one judge who's going to give him 2 out of the 3 rounds. Delgado in rounds 2 and 3 kind of just did better work. He got his offense going a little bit more. He was firing. Both guys do a lot of stance switching. Anytime they went open stance, he was pounding in a body kick. The body work, I do think, got to Feely down the stretch a little bit. Landed some pretty good elbows. So, decent stuff from Delgado. Also at featherweight, Marwan Rahiki defeated Harry Hardwick via TKO. Broken jaw, apparently, to Hardwick between rounds 2 and 3. Good on Hardwick's corner and good on Hardwick for acknowledging, yeah, jaw's broken. We're done here. Like that's one of those profoundly terrible injuries. The two injuries that even most fighters tend to be okay with saying, no, we're done, are jaw injuries or orbital injuries. I don't know what it is. I mean, I kind of know what it is. Like those are not only are they like bad visually, not only are they incredibly painful, and they are universally regarded as some of the most painful things to deal with. They kind of ruin your chances of winning after they happen. You get a busted orbital, one eye shut. If the doctor doesn't stop it, you still can't see out of it. It provides too big a hindrance. Broken jaw is just a giant target, and it only gets worse. As long as the fight lasted, this was pretty good. I thought Hardwick was doing more technical work for the most part, but Rahiki was really good about finding openings for his punches. I don't know how Hardwick survived that second round, especially after his jaw got busted. You could see when it happened. Because in the immediate aftermath of that exchange, his mouth's open. Commentary even noted it. Like, yeah, his mouth's open. Now, sometimes you open your mouth because your nose is busted up and you have to breathe. But there is a distinct difference between mouth open because I'm breathing and mouth open because I can't close it reliably. And it's a weird thing. Like, I can't really describe the difference to you, but if you've seen someone with the mouth open because of the broken jaw, the difference. It's so weird, but you absolutely know it. And he had the broken jaw mouth. I give him, again, immense credit for gutting through I think it was like the last bit of the second round with it. And for, staying active. But man alive. Rahiki's offense is definitely potent. Some of that was brought to life by Hardwick's defense being iffy, but I think this was your fight of the night, right? Yeah. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Good win there. Rough 2 first fights for Harry Hardwick. Comes in on short notice, gets his legs kicked out. Second fight, displays a bunch of toughness and some real skill, and then gets his jaw broken. Yeah, but again, fight of the night, good fight. Light heavyweight, Iwan Kutalaba defeated Umar Sy with a mounted guillotine choke, 424 of the first. I kind of hinted at this earlier, but whatever team Iwan Kutalaba got with over the last 3 fights, they have done him a world of good. His early stuff, he's just kind of a wild man, a wild berserker. He's really refined his game. He's more about playing the levels, not just striking levels, but he's still got power and he's still got the crazy. He's just very, very dialed it in. Now he's willing to wrestle a lot more. His grappling has come up tremendously. He had a couple of nice sweeps on Umar Sy here. Oh, speaking of sweeps, real briefly, in that Feely Delgado fight, there was a really nice giggler sweep or knee lever, or it'll call it the John Wayne. I don't know, whatever you call it. You know what it is. Really nice one of those from Feely to Delgado. So there were some good scrambles in that fight too. Was kind of the point there. Sy tries to just wrestle up on a single leg, gets a little bit out of position, head a little bit on the outside. There's an eternal debate about wrestling head inside versus head outside. Both have perils and advantages. Again, neither's ideal. Most traditional wrestling defense, you push the head inside because especially single legs, it kind of messes with the leverage and the angles they're able to take trying to finish it. But if you shoot outside in jiu-jitsu or any submission sport, the theory is like, oh boy, your neck's right there for the guillotine choke. So again, there's the arguments back and forth. I mean, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov was pretty famous for saying he always taught people to shoot either singles or doubles head outside. And when asked why, he said, because if you go inside, you're vulnerable to running into a knee and getting knocked out. And if the counter was like, well, what about the guillotine? Like, I can teach you how to fight a guillotine off. Like, that's a risk. There's no perfect takedown if you're shooting. I'd rather you potentially get an arm around your neck that you can fight off with proper technique than get your lights turned out with a knee. And at least he didn't say it was perfect. He just said this is the logic behind why we make this choice, and it's not unfair. And again, in traditional wrestling, you always go head outside for the most part with, again, most takedowns. But traditional wrestling, you're not worried about a lot of stuff. Anyway, C got a little bit too lazy with his head position. Kutalaba wrapped it, sat for the guillotine, arm in, rolled with it into mount, quick tap. I don't judge mounted guillotine chokes being quick taps harshly, because a mounted guillotine, especially from a big, strong guy, it's not just that it compresses this real bad. It does. But they crank your neck, like the vertebrae in the spine, and that ain't good. So I'm not judging him for that, but Kutalaba really has kind of found himself lately, and I think he needs a little bit more credit for that than he's getting. Again, me included. I'm not going to pretend I was banging the drum for him before this, but I'm going to start banging it now a little bit. Like, yeah, dude, this guy's good. He's really settled down. He's really figured himself out, and he's having a pretty decent run right now. So good on Kutalaba. Kicking off the main card, Charles Johnson defeated Bruno Silva via split decision. There was a 29-28 each way and then a 30-27 for Johnson. Not sure I agree with 30-27 for Johnson. I kind of thought Silva should have won the first. The second, not the first, the second round. But rounds 1 and 2, like, I thought Johnson did better work. Rounds 1 and 3, rather, excuse me. 3 I thought was pretty clearly for Johnson because Silva's offense was very muted in that round. And the first round, he did a lot of pushing to clinches, and he got outstruck. And I don't think what he did counteracted that. So I was okay with Johnson winning. Silva, still a fairly dirty fighter. If you look at a lot of the stuff he's doing, it's just ugh. Okay, we have a question here from Nico Belic. Who can beat Khamzat Chimaev in the UFC? Depends on the weight class. If he cuts back down to welterweight, I think there's, I won't say quite a few, but there's guys who can beat him at welterweight. I think Islam Makhachev would beat him at welterweight, for example. Probably among a couple of others if I really thought about it. At middleweight, that's really tough. This same guy says at 205, Ankalaev beats him. If Khamzat moves up to 205, yeah, there's guys who can beat him at 205. Ankh would be a problem. He's bigger, and he's a good wrestler. Not a guarantee, but Ankh would be a problem. Yuri might be a problem for him. Not a guarantee. Only way, same guy. Only way to defeat a mountain Chechen is a mountain Dagestani. You can make that argument. Have a quick look at the 205 rankings. I think that's an interesting question. I mean, 205 is a terrible division, so I think he'd beat, most of them. Okay. You got Ankh, Olberg. I mean, let's go from the bottom up, and I'll stop when I get to someone I think can beat him. So Zhongming Yang, he probably beats. Dustin Jacoby, he probably beats. Krylov, he probably beats. Johnny Walker, he almost definitely beats. Alexander Rakic, he probably beats. Dominic Reyes, he probably beats. Volkan Uzdemir, probably at this point. Bogdan Gushkov, yes. Jamal Hill, probably. Mirzakhanov's interesting. Azamat Mirzakhanov, I think, could give him problems. Blachowicz is interesting. Blachowicz could give him problems. Blachowicz gives everybody problems. He'd probably beat Khalil, but that's style more than anything. Olberg, it's another tough one. I got to see Olberg actually fight someone who can. Part of the problem here is like there's not a lot of really great wrestlers at light heavyweight at the moment, and that's kind of all Khamzat has. So short of like knowing how a lot of those guys match up with that kind of focus, you're kind of shooting in the dark. Let me put it this way: if Pereira were still there, I think Pereira could beat him. Ankh, I think you're right here. Magomed Ankalaev gives him some problems. Yuri Prochazka gives him some problems, but probably he might win a decision there. Olberg, I think, could give him some problems only because Chimaev is so aggressive and so consistently aggressive. When you're consistent about something like that, guys who do a lot of countering, you give them a lot of options. They have to make the most of them because if they mistime it, then against Chimaev, you're in trouble. But so point being, if he does move up, he's pretty clearly like a top 10, probably a top 5 guy in the weight class right now. So my thoughts on that. Let's see, where were we? Johnson over Silva. We just done that. Okay, so that was the main card. Prelims. Let's see what we got here. Muktabek Oralby defeated Chris Curtis, 30-27 across the boards. Yeah, this was a heck of a thing from Oralby. A lot of forward pressure, quick shots into clinches. This commentary brought it up because he hit the same number of like takedowns / mat returns almost that Khabib did against Stable Trujillo. Similar vibes. Just Oralby's grappling is really annoyance based. And I don't mean that as like some giant negative. He's not just holding. It's okay. I got a rear waist lock. Now, no matter what you do, I'm picking at something you're posting at. I'm moving you. You don't get to. You're going to fight my hands. We're going to go this direction. So you have to address it. And then I'm going to take this leg. When you try to build up, I'm going to pick this ankle. And oh, that hand's what you're posting on. I'm going to grab that wrist. Just a lot of that. Minimal ground and pound. Not non-existent, just minimal. Fair win for him. Oralby at welterweight, I think, is going to be a handful for some guys. If he's this strong against a guy like Chris Curtis, who is certainly no slouch, Oralby's definitely a handful. Curtis, unfortunate loss for him. I thought welterweight might be a chance for him to reinvent himself, but bad matchup for him too. So I don't know. We'll see. Have to see what he does next. I mean, the guy's getting up there, and I don't think he's about ready to like hang him up or anything, but he's closer to the end than the beginning. Same gentleman over here, Nico, says Oralby versus Shavkat Rakhmonov would be crazy. I miss Shavkat Rakhmonov. Yeah, that would be a pretty good fight. It would definitely be because Shavkat can grapple with him, and it would just that would get crazy. I just want Shavkat back, man. I just want him back. That poor guy. He's gonna wind up. I don't want him to wind up with as one of those what could have been stories, and sadly that does seem where he's headed. Vitor Petrino defeated Steve Asplund via unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. A lot of people were pleasantly entertained by this. I was not. Maybe I'm just being a hater. But there was about 5 minutes of good work here. And Petrino did have some flashes of stuff that was not terrible. But there was a lot of him like getting tired and then walking, and Asplund tired and like standing in the middle of the cage going, "No, you come to me." There were reasons for it. Asplund's takedown defense actually was really solid here. There were a couple of times Petrino got close, and I thought for sure he was going to be able to finish, and Asplund held strong and stopped him. So Petrino's jab also did some work because Asplund's face was busted up by the end of this. Yeah, again, there was about 5-7 minutes of okay fighting here, probably less than 7. a lot of the stuff in between the action kind of grated on me, and maybe that's just me. But again, a lot of people were pleasantly entertained, and God bless you if you were. This was certainly not the worst heavyweight fight I've seen this year, and for that, they get a thumbs up. Double, even. Bantamweight Elijah Smith defeated Su Young Yu via rear naked choke, 104 of the second. Some fun scrambles and takedown, again, wrestling-based stuff in the first round. Smith won. He hurt Yu, excuse me, with a punch. Got him to give up the back, got a pretty quick choke in the second. Good win for him. He's dynamic, he's athletic, fairly well-rounded, strong for the weight class. I mean, before this, he power bombed a guy into unconsciousness. Like Smith's definitely on the rise, moving from prospect towards contender fairly quickly. I want to give a shout out to you though. His last couple of fights, even though he'd won those, Nico says, "Happy Asplund lost. Blob heavyweights disgust you." My man, there is a blob in the top 15. It's Shamil Gaziev, who we refer to around here as the blob. I understand your point. It's just, I can't hate on Steve Asplund. The dude used to be well north of 300, like almost 400 pounds. Like there's a ungainly physicalityness to losing that much weight. And hopefully, that gets sorted in time. Your skin's elastic, but yeah, it's fighting, not a beauty contest, but I do understand. He even made the joke himself, like in the build up to the fight, like, this is the ugliest guy in the division versus the prettiest, which I'm not sure is specifically true, but got a laugh or two out of me. So anyway, I wanted to give credit to you. His takedown game was a lot more intentional and a lot more urgent in this fight. His last couple of fights, he's kind of meandered his way before taking the shot, and then not super urgent with it, even though jiu-jitsu is kind of his, game. Here he demonstrated a lot more commitment to takedowns and a lot more urgency about getting and finishing them. And, Smith out scrambled him in places, but I did want to give you a bit of a shout out there because that's a definite thing that he needed to work on, and he clearly did. So thumbs up. I think both guys actually fought really well in that one. Manuel Souza defeated Balaji Oki via knockout punch. Oh, jeez. Again, Nico, can't imagine someone like Asplund being the champion would lose hope in the heavyweight division. My man, this division has been without hope for a long time. We're in an era right now where if you took prime Tim Sylvia and dropped him into the current era, he's probably champion. And that is he's certainly top 5, if not champion outright. Like that's just where we are. This division globally in MMA is terrible. There's been a terrible effort at recruiting talent. There's been a terrible effort at enticing it, and there's been a terrible effort at actually retaining it. The UFC's been sideways with like a shockingly high percentage of their heavyweight champions. They got sideways with Randy Couture multiple times. They got sideways with Josh Barnett when he was champion. They got sideways with Francis. They got sideways with John Jones. They are sideways with Tom Aspinall right now. I mean, about the only guy they got sideways with Verdum briefly. They were all in on Kane, and that's a whole thing. I mean, Kane just had too many injuries. Like this, the UFC and the heavyweight champion of their organization, that position and the UFC have a long history of acrimony. It's weird, but it's definitely there. And now, like, it's just terrible. I don't know what else to tell you. It's a crap division. It's maybe the worst in the sport. So Souza and Oki had a light heavyweight style fight at lightweight. A lot of back and forth, a little bit sloppy for my personal taste, but yeah, Nico's arguing for aesthetics here. Is what it is. Not everyone has the genetic predisposition to that level of musculature. And frankly, a lot of people that don't choose MMA. To say nothing of the fact that, one of the best boxers of the last heavyweight era was Tyson Fury, who has a body like a bag of milk, but he could beat the crap out of you. So I just want it to be whoever's the best. And if they look good on a poster, that's a benefit. As long as they're not like Butterbean, we're okay. Yeah, Souza, the finishing blow too. Just really, he hurt Oki with a right hand. Oki kind of backed away, wrist control, pulled down the lead hand, and just leveled the boom. Fun little fight. Fun little fight there. Middleweight Eric Anders defeated Brad Tavares via unanimous decision, 229-28 and a 30-27. Okay fight. Like, dude, Eric Anders retired after this, and fair play to him. He had a respectable career. He's actually been in the UFC for quite a while. Brad Tavares has this miraculous stat. He's almost at 30 fights in the UFC. He's been here for almost 16 years, and he has received not a single post-fight bonus. Women's bantamweight, Bia Mesquita ran over Montserrat Rendon, got her down with a right hand. Actually, on the mat, Bia is probably the best pure grappler. Well, Kayla Harrison's there, which complicates the thing. She's certainly the best jiu-jitsu practitioner. Pure grappler, if we add all the disparate elements, it's tight, but she's definitely near the top. Got to full mount, dropped a nice 12-6 elbow that hurt or scared Rendon, or both. Rendon gives up the back, quick choke. Mount's kind of a lost art in MMA. I've been around long enough that I remember when if somebody got to mount on you, that was a death sentence. Nowadays, it's, they got to mount. Are they actually going to posture up, or are they just going to kind of hold here, grapevine the legs, and wait things out? A few things have changed. Freeing up 12-6 elbows really did a good job, like making mount a little bit more viable, because now you can't just hug the torso. Used to be if somebody got full mount, you could just like bear hug the body, and there's nothing really available to hit. You can get like these to the side of the head, but if you can 12-6 elbow the top of the head, that's a real damaging thing. Again, Nico chiming in. Satisfying to see Patty get destroyed by KG. Patty's weight management is a thing. Like, I don't know if he should just permanently move up, but going up and down in weight the way he does, that's not healthy. I don't know how long he's going to be able to keep that up. So Bia Mesquita definitely deserves. She's moving up the ranks in women's bantamweight, is in dire need of help, so she's a breath of fresh air there. Bantamweight, HR Souza defeated Luan Lacerda via unanimous decision, 230-27 and a 29-28. Okay fight. And kicking everything off, Piero Rodriguez beat Sam Hughes at strawweight, 30-27 across the board. Yeah, generic stuff there. Nothing in particular. Your bonuses, I already mentioned fight of the night because I usually do. That was Marwan Rahiki and Harry Hardwick. Performances went to Kevin Vallejos and Manuel Sosa. That's fair. Because you already bonused Rahiki and Hardwick. Sosa was a given. That was just such a clean knockout. And Vallejos as well. Like, he did have such a great overall performance. So unfortunately, again, Mesquita and Cutelaba kind of left a little bit out in the cold there, but those calls have to be made, and I don't disagree with almost any of that. So that was it. UFC Fight Night 269. Emmett versus Vallejos. Full report, MMAZone411mania.com. Go give it a read if you're so inclined. I always appreciate the heck out of you guys on that. So thank you very much. Okay. Well, that didn't take very long. Okay. Moving on to UFC Fight Night 270. This will be from the O2 Arena in London. The UFC's back there for the first time. When was the last time they were there? They were there last year, right? Yeah, Brady and Edwards. They've brought a weird fight card here. There's some good stuff to be had. This will also take place. I'm going to double check the start time. I don't need that. I have you over here. There we go. Yeah, the prelims are going to start at 1 p.m. Eastern? I think that's right. So again, prime time, enjoy the matinee kind of showing. What they've got going with uh, what they've got going with Paramount Plus does allow them a lot of freedom as far as when they start these things. So they're taking advantage of that. They'll take advantage more of it with their return to Australia. So be ready for a long night when that one crops up. But the main event is really good. Movsar Evloev, Lerone Murphy, two undefeated guys. Frankly, either of them could have fought Volk in place of Diego Lopez, and either of them should have fought Volk in place of Diego Lopez. That's kind of just where we are. It's a good fight. We haven't seen Evloev go 5 rounds in the UFC. Has he gone 5 rounds ever? Let me check that. Yeah, he's gone into the 5th round in 2018. His last fight before he joined the UFC. He fought Rafael Diaz at M1 and got a stoppage 21 seconds into the 5th round. He also went 5 rounds in a decision, also in M1. This is 2017. Okay, so he's done 5 rounds before. Okay. Never against someone like Lerone Murphy, but he's gone 5 rounds before. That's a big deal. Dude has 12 wins by decision and 7 by some kind of finish. Man, he's almost doubled up that. Never mind. That's for another time. Another time for that one. Okay, so what's Evloev done recently? Beat Aljamain Sterling. That was a good fight. It was December of 24, so he missed all of 25. Why did that happen? He was supposed to fight Aaron Pico. Right. He had an injury. So that was the big fight for 25. And he got injured. So that's unfortunate. But that's why he lost out on that fight. So his UFC run is pretty solid, actually. Seungwoo Choi for your debut. That's a solid debut win. Enrique Barzola, Mike Grundy, Nick Lentz, Hakeem Dawodu, Dan Ige, that was big. Diego Lopez. That was Lopez on real short notice, too. Arnold Allen, Aljamain Sterling. Like, the dude's beating good guys. He's just... The Aljamain Sterling fight was the most entertaining one he's had, I think. Well, short of the Lopez one. But he and Sterling had some insane scrambles going on, and that fight deserved more respect than it got when it was all said and done. Murphy, on the other hand, is coming out because he stepped in for Evloev to fight Aaron Pico and knocked him completely into next year with that spinning elbow. He beat Josh Emmett before that, pretty clear unanimous decision. He beat Dan Ige. Again, Murphy's another guy whose UFC career, again, he's undefeated. Had a split draw with Zubaira Tuhugov in his debut, which was that's a tough debut. In 2019, that was a tough debut. And he maybe should have won that fight. He beat Ricardo Ramos. He stopped him, actually. Beat Douglas Silva de Andrade. Stopped Makwan Amirkhani. Had a tough first round against Amirkhani before he caught him with a knee in the second. Beat Gabriel Santos. Beat Josh Kulabau. Not Kutalaba, different guy. Beat Edson Barboza. That was a good fight. 5 rounds. It was a good fight. Beat Danny and then beat Ige, Emmett, and Pico. So these two guys are definitely in this spot for a reason. The UFC's publicly stated this is to get the next shot at Volk. We'll see if they actually hold to that because the UFC's word means nothing. Murphy has struggled with guys who are persistent wrestlers in the past. If there's something giving me pause, despite the layoff for Evloev. All right, let me reset the spreadsheet so I can make my predictions. Okay. If I've got a serious reservation here, it's despite being, again, undefeated, Murphy has struggled. Again, Amirkhani gave him problems in that first round in particular, but Amirkhani fades. Evloev doesn't. He was able to avoid having to wrestle for long periods of time with Josh Emmett and was just superior on the feet. Evloev on the feet he's not as reckless as Aaron Pico. And again, I shouldn't say again anymore. And Pico's commitment to forward pressure is what kind of walked him into that trouble shot. It's not like Aaron Pico didn't have success against Murphy before he got knocked out. They were back and forth a little bit. So Evloev's commitment to forward pressure, to wrestling, to scrambling, it can be a serious problem for Murphy because he struggled a little bit with some of those guys who fight like that in the past. Conversely, being that predictably aggressive can get you in trouble fighting a guy who is smart and counter-oriented and, again, a very just thoughtful fighter like Lerone Murphy. This is a very, very well-matched fight. Very much looking forward to it. Murphy actually presents more danger. I know they both have like a reputation as decision merchants, but Murphy has what, 3 finishes in the UFC? Yeah. Whereas Evloev hasn't finished a fight in the UFC at all. So a bit more danger coming the way from Lerone Murphy. But Evloev is relentless. And part of what has saved Murphy when he's fought guys like this in the past is his ability to manage and to persevere when they slow down. And I just don't know how much you can rely on Movsar Evloev slowing down. That seems real dicey. Let's check the odds because that amuses me. Okay, I would not be the biggest fan of these odds, these numbers in particular. Most places have Evloev around minus 250, give or take. So plus 180 on Murphy. I think that's close to being right. I'm a little bit more like minus 190 Evloev. So that would be plus 150, give or take, for Murphy. I wouldn't be comfortable having to pay out almost 2-1 on a Lerone Murphy win. I'm going to asterisk this one. There are 2 things I need to double check on each guy. And Evloev missing all of last year has kind of dulled my immediate memory of a lot of the specific stuff he does. So I'm going to tape study him a little more aggressively over the last before the fight, but for the sake of right now, I'll go with the odds and pick Evloev because the way Murphy has had some problems with guys who fight like he does is very, very much in my mind. Not confident. Again, the asterisk is there because I need to see how Evloev enters on some of his closing effort, and I need to double check a little bit Murphy's takedown defense, and not just takedown defense, but like scrambles when he actually does lose position, because those are big things that you have to deal with against Evloev. So I don't need you. So I'm gonna lean Evloev right now, but well-matched fight. Very much looking forward to it. Things go downhill pretty quickly after that. I will try to find some positives here. But your co-main event right now is Luke Riley and Michael Aswell, and neither of these gentlemen has a Wikipedia page. So at least one of them is catching a fare to drive someone home. Let's have a look at this. So Riley, 12-0. I think he trains with Patty because he had a UFC debut that was a win. When he beat Bogdan Grad, he struggled in that first round though. Okay. And he's fighting again Michael Aswell, who's 11-3. And this is his UFC debut. No, he's 1-1 in the UFC. He lost to Balaji Oki and he beat Lucas Almeida. Feels a little bit like they're setting up Luke Riley here. Odds kind of agree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't like holding. Again, the odds are around minus 300 for Riley. That I wouldn't be super confident in. I would not love the notion of having to pay out 2.5 to 1 on a guy who struggled in his UFC debut before getting a finish. But that's just me. I don't actually have to pay out any of that stuff. Next up, Michael Venom Page and Sam Patterson. Page, back down at welterweight. He's been out for a minute, which is weird because he's on a 2-fight winning streak. Yeah, he beat Sharo Magomedov, which was hilarious. He beat Jared Cannonier, which was a really good win, actually. But those were both at middleweight. Back at welterweight, his welterweight record is just not as strong as his middleweight one. And Patterson, 14-2-1. I think he lost his UFC debut, but 2-0 since. 4-0. Yeah, 4-0 since. Jeez. Yeah, he lost to Yanal Ashmuz, and he beat Johan Lanus, Kiefer Crosby, Danny Barlow, Trey Waters. This is a big step up for him. Those are all first-round finishes. He does a lot of striking. Odds are close, but are with Page. I'm going to go with Page. He tends to do really well against guys who fight like Sam Patterson. It's not a guarantee, but a general observation. That said, welterweight might still be too much of a cut for him, so we'll see how it plays out. Light heavyweight, God help us, Iwo Baraneski and Austin Lane. This is a gimme. They're trying to give Baraneski a squash match, basically, because Austin Lane is not very good. Niew. Baraneski had a pretty solid UFC debut. Yeah, Austin Lane is just here to get knocked out. Middleweight, Roman Dolidze and Christian Leroy Duncan. This is a fairly well-matched fight. Dolidze, what have you done recently, my man? Lost to Anthony Hernandez. No shame there. 3 wins in a row before that. Anthony Smith, Kevin Holland, and Marvin Vettori. This is probably Duncan. Duncan, 3-fight winning streak. He won his UFC debut, random knee injury to Dushko Todorovic. Lost to Armin Petrosian, weird fight. Beats Dennis Talulin and Claudio Hiberio. Loses to Gregory Rodriguez, because RoboCop's awesome. 3-fight winning streak since. Andre Pulayev, Eric Anders, and Marco Tullio. Dolidze, I think, is also starting to hit the downside. He's 37, whereas CLD over there is only 30. This is a very winnable fight. Let me say this is a winnable fight for Dolidze. Duncan is dangerous, but if Dolidze can force him to do a lot of grappling, that's still an area where Duncan is a tad unproven, and Dolidze's pretty good there. Not great, but solid. That said, they're giving the hometown crowd something to be happy about, and Duncan is not a guarantee, not even a sure thing or a lock or whatever you want to say it, but he seems to be moving up in the world, whereas Dolidze seems to be moving down. So we'll go with Duncan. And kicking off the main card, Curtis Campbell and Danny Silva. Who are you two gentlemen? So Campbell, he's the Brit. 8-0. This is his UFC debut. Coming off a Contender Series win. Had a couple of FCC title defenses. Good for him. FCC is a legitimate regional promotion. And Silva, 10-2. We have the Pink Panther versus El Puma. Oy vey. Silva's 10-2. 2-1 in the UFC. He beat Josh Kulabau. He beat Lucas Almeida, both split decisions. Then he lost to Kevin Vallejos. The horror of losing to that guy. Okay. Silva definitely more seasoned. I got to check something on that guy. I'm going to asterisk this one way or the other. The odds are with, I got to familiarize myself with Campbell. Okay, I'm going to go with Campbell because that's where the odds are for the sake of this, but I got to double check something on each of those guys. And I always like to double check, especially debutantes. And so don't hold me to that one. Then on the prelims, Mason Jones and Axel Sola. So Jones, only 30. Couple of fights into the UFC, beat Jeremy Stevens, beat Vallejos. Well, he's in his second UFC stint, actually. His first one lasted from 21 to 22. He lost to Mike Davis, had a no contest with Alan Patrick, beat David Onama, lost to Ludovic Klein, got released. Won 3, 4 in a row. 4. Came back to the UFC on short notice, beat Jeremy Stevens. Now again, beat Vallejos most recently. So he's kind of on his way. Who is Mr. Sola? He is French, fighting out of France at least. 11-0 with 1 draw. Won his UFC debut over Reese McKee in September of last year. Had a good run through Aries FC, again, another very legitimate promotion. That might sound like I'm occasionally being sarcastic with that. I'm not. If I have something negative to say about a regional or a smaller promotion, I will. Aries is legitimate. Again, Cage Warriors. There's several of those that I think higher of if you come through there than certain other places. So that's not a bad fight, actually. It feels a lot of this card feels like a Cage Warriors card, and I say that both as a little bit of a knock on what the UFC has become quality wise, and also to say Cage Warriors is a pretty darn good group. The odds are with Jones. I'm gonna respect that. That's where I was leaning anyway. Jones, one of those guys who may have got to the UFC a little bit too early, and the fact that he got back is a mark in his favor. Featherweight next, Nathaniel Wood and Losine Keita. So Wood, so much good about that guy's game. But he tends to fight, intermittently. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Daniel Pineda in 24, Morgan Chartier in 25, and Jose Delgado in 25. Delgado missed weight for that fight. Dude, Delgado gave Wood the business in that first round too, but he couldn't keep it up. And Nathaniel Wood is a very, very, very fundamentally sound fighter. What can we learn about you, Mr. Kaida? Let's see. This is his UFC debut. He's fought almost. Okay, hang on. Early did he's been with Octagon since 21 basically. Octagon is a very good promotion. His only loss was a leg injury he suffered again in Octagon 45. Okay. Yeah, this guy's legit. He's not somebody just brought in here to necessarily fill out a card. Nathaniel Wood is a tough UFC debut by any stretch of the imagination. Wood is a very good fighter. But Keita, I think, is someone that they're really might be looking at. How old is he? He's only 28. Good grief. Right hand. He's bounced around weight. He's been at lightweight for a while. His last featherweight fight was 2023. Excuse me, last featherweight fight. So that's a consideration. That is definitely a consideration. His only loss came at featherweight, but again, his only loss was a leg injury. Let me asterisk this one. You need one of those. I'm leaning Keita right now. Let me check the odds, but I think I'm going to go with Keita. Yeah, the odds are with Keita. A little surprised at that. I need to look up his last couple of fights because Nathaniel Wood I have a pretty decent handle on these days, but Keita I want to double check because I'm aware of him, but I want to refresh, get a real solid look. Heavyweight, God help us, Mario Pinto and Felipe Franco. Franco's in here on short notice. Mario Pinto's a guy they like. This is not super difficult to predict, guys. Do they even have odds on this one? I don't think they've come out with them officially yet because this is a late notice. Yeah, this is a fairly recent. Yeah, no, there it is. Sorry. Yeah, dude, Pinto's like minus 900. He's going to be the biggest favorite on the card, even though maybe Baranevsky should be. Yeah, this is. I would have favored Pinto over his original opponent, much less a late notice guy. Who was he fighting originally? Oh yeah, Mick Parkin. Yeah, I would have favored him over Parkin too. Yeah, Pinto's an easy pick here. Easy. Next up, we have Antonio Trocoli. So we're picking the other guy. Lithuanian, just because of his last name. Mantas Kondratavicius. Probably mispronouncing that. Let's have a look at all. I'm just gonna say Mantas. He's 8-1. Kondratavicius. Okay. 3-fight winning streak. This is his UFC debut. He won on the Contender Series. Fairly September of last year. He's been out for a minute. It's a little bit longer than I would have thought before his UFC debut would come around, but okay. Antonio Trocoli's not good. Is the long and the short of this one. Trocoli's just not good. So I'm probably just never going to pick him. Okay, heavyweight. Oh, again, Louis Sutherland and Brando Parachek. If Nico's still around, he's going to have a mild stroke looking at Sutherland and Parachek. Let's have a look here. So Sutherland, 10-4. I think he lost his UFC debut, right? Yeah, to Walter Walker. Okay, he got heel hooked in the first round. He has a lot of fights fall out. Good grief. Because he was supposed to fight Justin Taffa, who's somehow still on the roster. Let me have a quick look at old Brando. Because he had a successful UFC debut. Yeah, he beat Elisha Ellison. 3-fight winning streak overall. Okay. Sutherland's the Scot. He's the one they're going to be trying to get a little bit of the rub for. But Parachek actually didn't look terrible. I mean, it's low-level heavyweight, so I'd avoid gambling on it out of principle, but I'll go with Parachek. Again, I think he had certainly a more optimism-inducing UFC debut. At lightweight, Shaquimi Shamrock versus Abdul Karim Al-Salwadi. Neither of these gentlemen should be in the UFC. Let me state that fairly unequivocally. Shamrock is 12-2-1. Lost his UFC debut to Nurulio Aliyev. Had a decent winning streak before that. Okay, so Rock, I may be willing to revisit my opinion. Al-Salwadi is. They tried real hard to make him a thing. He finally made his debut off of a Contender Series win. He promptly got beat by Loic Radzhabov. That was in 2024, March. of 2024. He's had 4 fights fall out since then. At least 2 of those are him. A fight with Guram Kutadladze, a fight with Jordan Levitt, a fight with Balaji Oki, a fight with Matthews Camilo. This dude. All right, I'm not going to pick that guy, I don't think, at this point. The odds are with him. I haven't picked a dog yet. I'll pick a dog here in the form of good old Shamrock. I don't have a lot of optimism for Al-Sawadi. I may be very wrong about that, but that's where I am right now. Strawweight, Chanel Dyer and Havana Oliveira. Let's have a look at Dyer. She is 6-1. This is her UFC debut. She lost on the Contender Series, but got a contract anyway, because if you're a woman, they just throw those at you, I guess. Oliveira. Which Oliveira are you? I don't just mean Havana. I mean, she's 7-3-1. Okay, I recognize you. 0-2 in the UFC, right. Lost to Tainara Lisboa and Stephanie Luciano. It's not very helpful. Who was I thinking of? There's someone else with a very similar name who I would have picked over Dyer. But I don't think I'll pick Oliveira over her. I would not like these odds, though. The odds are real big with Dyer, and that's putting odds that heavy on low-level women's strawweight is asking for trouble if you have to pay out. And kicking everything off, we have Luana Carolina and Melissa Mullins. Mullins had some hype when she came in. She's 7-2, but 1-2 in the UFC, 2-2. Okay, get rid of those. She's missed weight a couple of times. See, she debuted and beat Irina Alexeva. She lost to Nora Cornoli and missed weight. She beat Claudia Seguya and missed weight. She's coming off a loss to Daria Zlezniakova. There's some good to her game, but her, like, mostly grappling related. But man, her takedowns aren't great. Her striking is iffy, and she kind of can get walked into stuff. Her ground and pound is actually decent, though, if she gets things there, which is nice because, again, ground and pound is kind of a dead art. Carolina, on the other hand, 11-5. 6-4 overall with the UFC. Just had a 3-fight winning streak broken by Michelle Montague. That was September of last year. Was Mullins fighting at flyweight before this? Hang on, I gotta check that. Okay, away with you. Alrighty. She lost. No, that was her. The Zlezniakova fight was at bantamweight. Is she even missing at bantamweight? I feel like the Seguya fight. Yeah, well, this will tell me one way or the other. No, she's just kind of been struggling at bantamweight. Okay. Well, that happens to people. So she's missed weight twice. That's a problem. I always reserve the right to change my mind after seeing the weigh-ins, especially if doubly so if someone misses weight. I don't have a lot of faith in Carolina. I don't have a lot of faith in either of these women. The odds were what, slightly with Carolina? Almost even, but some places do have it even. Geez. Odds are slightly with Carolina. I'm gonna pick Mullins. But I need to see how she looks at the weigh-in. So if she looks like death, I'm changing. I'm reserving. This one I'm reserved. I've got a note here. Like post weigh-in, I get a slightly different opinion. But other than that, that's where we are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is UFC Fight Night 270. So, save my picks. I will have coverage in the MMA zone of 411mania.com per usual. So stop by, say hello. Y'all know the drill. All right, let's jump into some fight announcements. Okay. So the UFC dropped basically their calendar, the whole calendar of fights leading up to the White House card. So let's go over what we didn't know. What did we? Okay, so the Apex card on April 4th is headlined by Moicano and Duncan. Anything else on that card worth talking about? Janjiroba and Ricci, relevant, even though that division sucks. Good grief. There's almost no one on this card with a Wikipedia entry. That's just sad. Okay. Yakyaev and Hiberio. Curious about Yakyaev still. Ethan Nunez, no. No. Chuck Radke and Jose Enrique Souza, no. Guillermo Pat and Thomas Peterson, don't care. Jose Delano and Robert Chala, no. Lando Venata and Darius Flowers. Lando Venata's kind of fun. Azamat Bakoev and Trishan. Azamat Bakoev's buried on the prelims. Sure, this is the guy I'm thinking of. Yeah, he's coming off a loss to Belgori, but dude had a. Okay, yeah, that fight should be higher. Good grief. Okay, that is a night of warehouse fights. That is full on warehouse fights. Okay. We already knew 327. So the UFC's return to Canada, we know more about. This is April 18th. Sorry about that. Headlined by Gilbert Burns and Mike Malott. Also on that card, what do we got? Tanner Bozier's fighting. That'll probably not be good. Jasmine Jasdavicius and Karine Silva. Jasdavicius is climbing the ranks, okay. Castaneda. Alon Nascimento's back at flyweight. I'm waiting for him to really kind of break through. Charles Jourdain and Kyler Phillips will probably be fun. They haven't announced that entire card yet, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If they only go with 11 fights, one, I'll be happy, but they haven't had a fight. They haven't intentionally had a fight card that light in a long time. April 25th, also at the Apex. There's some choices here. In the warehouse, headlining Aljamain Sterling and Yusuf Zalal. Why Aljamain Sterling is not fighting in New Jersey 2 weeks later is beyond me, but hey, I don't handle this stuff. Sterling and Zalal's a good fight. Very relevant for the division. What else do we got? Davey Grant and Adrian Martinetti. Davey Grant's fun. Normie Dumont and Jocelyn Edwards, don't care. Myra Buena-Silva and Michelle Montague, don't care. Jafel Filio and Lucas Rocha, that'll be all right. Adolfo Vieira and Eric McConico, meh. Adolfo Vieira in MMA is... Dude's takedowns are just not there. For as great as his jiu-jitsu is, man, I don't know if he just wasted a lot of his athletic prime in competitive... Wasted's a strong word. Allocated a lot of his athletic prime to sports jiu-jitsu. And getting into MMA later, his dynamism is just not there. Cedric Dumas and Jackson McVeigh, both those guys should be cut. Hani Barcelos and Montel Jackson, that'll be okay. Hani Barcelos gets no respect. It's kind of sad. Max Jimenez and Alan Furman, okay. So we still don't know everything for that card, but we know the main. And the main's good. The rest of that is real iffy. Dumont and Edwards and Myra Buena-Silva and Michelle Montague on the same card might be a war crime. That's a lot. The Perth card, this is May 2nd / 1st, depending where you are in the world. Headlined by Jack Del Maddalena and Carlos Praches. Great fight. Absolutely great. Love that fight. We were supposed to get Beneil Dariush and somebody else. That fell out. Quill and Salkild steps in. They're just trying to kill Benil Dariush on camera, I'm convinced. Also on that card, Junior Tafa and Kevin Christian. Don't know why Tafa's there. Tai Tuivasa and Sean Sharaf. They are going to kill Tai Tuivasa in the cage or finally get him a win. By the way, Tai Tuivasa, 5-fight losing streak. Now a ranked heavyweight again because reasons. The division sucks. Steve Erceg and Tim Elliott, good fight. Jacob Malkoon and Gerald Mershart. That's a pretty good fight too. Robert Brychek and Cam Rouston. That's okay. So that Perth card is actually shaping up pretty solid. So thumbs up so far to the work there. UFC 328. This is one of the big ones in New Jersey. For the middleweight title, Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland. This should have been Imavov. We all know it, but it is what it is. Gonna be honest. Strickland's chances are legit in this fight. I'm not going to pick him right now, but Strickland offers, I do think he's difficult to take down. He's a good wrestler. He's going to be there for all 5 rounds, and Khamzat has slowed in the past. Yeah, we're going to see. My hunch right now is to still favor Chimaev, but I'm not going to discount Sean Strickland at all. What else do we got on that card? Volkov and Cortez Acosta, don't care. Sean Brady and Joaquin Buckley is a good fight. Jan Blachowicz and Bogdan Gushkov. Okay, I can live with that. Ateba Gautier is fighting Ozzy Diaz. They're still... Guys, Ateba Gautier is good, but let the man develop. He's still very green. He's scary as heck, but green. Ozzy Diaz is a good opponent, but it's another one that when you give someone squash matches this regularly, part of what you're trying to do is familiarize the crowd with them. But what you're also trying to insinuate is they're ready to move up. Gautier has a lot of work to do. Diaz is... This feels a little bit too much like we're in the same place. I would rather see Gautier take a small step up. And I don't think Diaz represents that. I think he might even represent a step backwards. Also on that card, Roman Kopylov and Marco Tulio. I like Kopylov. Clayton Carpenter and Jose Ochoa, whatever. Jeremy Stevens and King Green. Okay. Baisungar Susrakayev and Jordan Santos. Susrakayev, dude has a very high opinion of himself. But I am not in love with most of that card. Like Brady and Buckley is a good, well-matched fight, important for both guys. Both guys have struggled with dealing with what the other one does very, very well. So, but I don't care about Cortez Acosta. I know they're trying to make him a thing. I really do. And Volkov, God bless him. Dude's been at the same level for, like 10 years, 15 years at this point, which is hard to do, but it's not quite enough to really get to the title. And I hope they have a replacement fight in mind for when Khamzat pulls out of that fight. Let's see. Then we have at the Apex on May 16th, Arnold Allen versus Melquiel Costa. Perfectly acceptable Apex main event. Good to see Costa in the main event spot. This is right where he should be. Arnold Allen is a very good test. And, well, dude, if Arnold Allen is... that's a very, very good fight. Also on that card, Cutland Vieira and Jacqueline Cavalcante. Cavalcante has been in need of a step up. Poliana Viana and Alice Ardolian, don't care. Daniel Bardes and Luis Guruli, don't care. So a lot still to come for that card, but Allen Costa as your presumptive headliner. Okay. May 30th in Macau. Main event of Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo. They are setting Song up there a little bit. Heavyweight, Sergey Pavlich and Taliesin Teixeira. Don't care. Sergey probably wins that. Light heavyweight, Zhang Mingyang and Alonzo Menefield. Zhang getting a very favorable matchup. And announced also Sumudarji and Alex Perez. That's a pretty good fight. Not great, but that's a solid fight. So we know a little bit there. And then the last card before the White House fights, back in the warehouse, Bilal Muhammad and Gabriel Bonfim to main event. That's a weird fight. Because Bonfim, This is the slightly better Bonfim brother, I think. 4-fight winning streak. He's taking a big step up here. I don't think he beat Stephen Thompson. Is Ishmael the better fighter? Let me see if I can find Ishmael Bonfim's link here. Okay. I got to think about that. That's a big step up for Bonfim, and I imagine he was not the guy Bilal Muhammad was trying to fight. Just put it that way. And that is what we know so far. So there's some good stuff there. To be very fair to the UFC, there is some good stuff there. Not all of it's going to be great, but JDM and Carlos Praches is really good. Prochazka and Olberg I can live with. That's coming up in April. Chimaev and Strickland is a little disappointing because I'd rather it was Imavov, but that's just me. And I tend to stick for meritocracy whenever possible, but I don't have to sell tickets. Neither does the UFC with what they're getting in guaranteed revenue, but hey, it's the principle of the thing. Alan Costa's fine. Song and Figueiredo's okay. Sterling and Zalal is a good fight, just oddly placed. And yeah, so there's some good stuff there. More to come in the future. We'll try to keep you updated here. Yeah, that's what we got there. Okay. Let's move on to the last thing I have written down, then we'll check the social medias. So the press conference for Rousey versus Carano happened. Also on that card was announced not too long after I did the show, actually, last week. And Francis Ngannou will be on that card. He'll be fighting Felipe Lins. We're trying to just get Ngannou into a bigger fight here, but okay. The big things that came out of that were Ronda Rousey killing the UFC for fighter pay. This is pretty rich coming from the woman who, in court, under oath, testified on behalf of the UFC when she had a good relationship with them. Not a darn thing has changed. One of her talking points was they took the UFC reins away from Dana, and they only care about making cost-effective fights. They always only cared about cost-effective fights. That's not new. You just got treated better. It's a personal thing, not an objective thing. The last 2 years that you were in the UFC, Ronda, fighter revenue split was almost as bad as 15%. I think the highest it got under her time there was 17. That hasn't changed. That's not a new thing. That's always been a thing. We just talk about it more now. And she's pissy at the UFC at the moment because, look, this has kind of been told. When Dana White at the start of 2025 said, it was end of 24, start of 25, said, I've got something big in the works. You guys are never going to believe it. He was talking about this fight, Rousey versus Carano. Ronda came to him with the idea, and then various deals went through, and they didn't want to, I guess they didn't want to meet the numbers that she wanted. So she took it elsewhere, which is how this is supposed to work. This is actually the market working appropriately instead of just you talk with the UFC. But I think she's just kind of butthurt about the way she was treated. And if they treated her better, she'd be singing their praises up and down. I don't think she's actually standing on principle. I think she's standing on personal grudge. Doesn't mean anything she's saying is wrong. I'm just talking motivation here. What she's actually saying is entirely correct. The UFC just is mostly focused on economics. Most places are these days. They could be doing more. They could be paying more. I think I heard Luke Thomas say this, and it's absolutely true. There is not a single fight in the entire realm of MMA that the UFC cannot afford to put on. And bear in mind, when I say afford, I don't mean roll dice, maybe not, get the best. No, They could like afford and still be profitable. The UFC can afford anything in the realm of MMA. That's how much money they're making. I really need to emphasize this: $1.1 billion a year. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's an enormous amount of money. I mean, that's so if the only thing stopping them from making a fight is we don't want to pay what the fighters are asking, that is entirely on the UFC. Now, if part of their argument was we don't feel like there's we don't want to be in business with Ronda at this point, and the problem is like they clearly do, they clearly would. So Ronda was out there trashing. He said, Dana White knows the UFC White House card sucks. The UFC White House card doesn't suck. I talked about that last week. It doesn't suck. It's just not what they were promising when they were trying to hype it up. And look, if a fighter can't make the date because of injury, there's nothing you can do about that. If a fighter says, I want X amount of money, and it's not comical, like apparently is their big beef with John Jones at the moment, that's on them. Look, if John was asking for, again, about like 15 million to fight Poetin on the White House card, they're giving Connor Ben $15 million. I know. Oh, it's Turkey's footing most of that. Guys, no one cares. It's Zuffa Boxing. It's under the umbrella of TKO. It's the same company. Turkey's putting out for it. They make $1.1 billion a year just from Paramount. That is nothing to say what they're gouging out of fans for the ticket prices. Nothing to say of what they still do get in pay-per-view out of Canada. Nothing to say about their broadcast deals in the UK. Nothing to say about their broadcast deals in anywhere else in like South America. Guys, they can afford it. If John Jones is one of the more criminally underpaid athletes in UFC history, so's Ronda for that matter. Like just relative to like interest and hype that Ronda Rousey brought in her peak, relative to what she was paid, comically underpaid. And I think she's kind of realized it. And again, if the UFC was willing to play nice, she would not be saying any of this. She actually, then she showed up in AEW like last night. Which is the weirdest thing. The woman kind of got like booed out of the building at the end of her run in WWE because people were just kind of sick of her. And now she's not dealing with the UFC or apparently TKO, because I imagine if she was still under contract with WWE in any capacity, she couldn't just appear in an AEW ring on an AEW pay-per-view, I think it was. Like, that's not a thing you could just do. So if she's out of deals with both of them, like, she's just going to wind up using. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what's up with that. Francis Ngannou was actually sympathized with John Jones. Said, yeah, man, you deserve that big payday. Sucks that you're in that position. I've been there. John also needs to be said, like, he signed an 8-fight deal with the UFC not that long ago. I think like a fight or two ago. Dude, unless you actually have a sunset clause in there, the UFC is just going to sit on that and wait you out, and you're never going to get to do anything else. That's just how this works. So, again, the UFC kind of got killed by everybody there. I mean, Francis didn't like kill them, but he not shy about sharing his opinion when asked about it. Somebody did bring up, bear in mind that, talk about this real quick from Francis. Somebody asked him, like, how do you feel about some people saying you've ruined your legacy? And his response was, well, what do you think a legacy is? And the answer he got was like, how you're thought of in the sport and whatnot. And he said, look, my legacy is my family. My legacy is the money. I don't really care how you think about me. And you know what? There's a line I think I heard. I want to say I heard it from like Scott Hall. Or I heard it attributed to him first, him or Kevin Nash. And this is about pro wrestling, but I'm going to relate it to MMA, I promise. But because the world of professional wrestling like tries to blend reality with fiction so much, occasionally people in that world have to be reminded. And I don't know who told this to. I want to say it was Scott Hall, but I heard it relayed about him that he said the only thing real in this business, this wrestling, are the money and the miles. The money you earn and the miles you drive and put on your body. That's the only thing that's real. Everything else doesn't matter. Now, in MMA, the miles are different because the chance of injury and what you put yourself through in training and in actual fights is different in terms of the physicality that you deal with in professional wrestling. Not a knock on wrestling, just saying it's different. But it's fundamentally true. Like, what's real at the end of the day? When you retire, when you hang them up, what are the real things to you? The money you made, the injuries you accrued. That's it. How many times you defended the belt? Did it serve either of those two purposes? Did it minimize injury and maximize money? If it didn't, who cares? Like, legacy is a really weird thing, guys. It's most of the people right now in the sport couldn't tell you about Cain Velasquez. This is not a sport with a, I shouldn't say it's not a sport with a rich history. This is not a sport that cares about history. The UFC has cultivated it this way. This is not a sport where you share with the prior generations all the great classics. Like, boxing has not only a rich history, but a rich appreciation for its history. If you are into boxing, part of what goes into that is everyone talking about old stuff. That was great. Go watch Jersey Joe Walcott. Go watch Rocky Marciano. Go watch Ezzard Charles. Like, that's a thing in boxing. They talk about the old stuff. They replay the old stuff. Go watch Marvin Hagler. Go, any of these guys. Like, you could go on. Like, think of the great boxers. There's a commitment to not only preserving the history, but to sharing it, to building it going forward. The UFC doesn't care. Like, oh, they do the Hall of Fame. Like, if they can't monetize it, they don't care. And the churn in MMA fandom is such that in any 7-year stretch of time, the new generation of fans in that 7 years are not told anything by the guys at the end of it because most of them have dropped out. I think the lifespan of the average MMA fan for the observable time I've been in this business, and I've been here for a while, is about 5 years. When I started participating in this show, it was a big format. It was a panel podcast hosted by somebody else, my friend Mark Radulich, actually. And there were like 4 or 5 people on it. When I took over hosting, it was me and 2 people. And clearly now it's just me. Everyone else just dropped off, got done with the sport for one reason or another. And a couple of them I'll talk fights with on occasion. And again, I'm clearly still good friends with Mark, but we don't talk MMA all that often because he doesn't care that much, which is fine. He and I are, again, we're good friends. We have a million things to talk about. But that's the lifespan of a fan in the sport, give or take, 5 years. And for anyone who survives that first 5 years, there's another group of that, like whatever is left of that core at the 8 to 10 year mark, probably 10 again. Like the next 5 years, at the end of that, another chunk of that falls off. The number of people right now watching and talking about MMA who actually watched Pride is, I imagine, an incredibly small percentage of the audience. Again, a lot of people right now saying, but Francis Ngannou's legacy. Can you tell me about the legacy of Cain Velasquez? Tell me anything about him. How about Randy Couture? Tell me anything about Randy? How about Frank Shamrock? I know those guys are on the outs with the UFC anyway, so the UFC is disincentivized to talk about them ever. But they're legendary figures. UFC treats them like dirt because the UFC is the UFC. But we can go on. Like, tell me about Matt Hughes. Any of you. Tell me one title defense Matt Hughes had. Give me one. Don't look it up. Just give me one. Because he had a lot. Got any of them? Nope. How about BJ Penn? Tell me anything about BJ Penn. Anything. Tell me anything about Ken Shamrock. Anything. Tell me anything about Josh Barnett. Tell me anything about Fedor or Crow Cop or Big Nog or Vanderlei Silva. Heck, we're at the point where like they cheer Chuck Chuck Liddell when he gets shown on screen, but none of them actually like watched him fight. Like, you can't do it. You guys couldn't tell me anything about Miguel Torres. I couldn't tell me anything about Uriah Faber. I don't like Faber either, but like, come on. You're not. Legacy in this industry is about as relevant as legacy in professional wrestling. What matters is the money you make and your health. Everything else is secondary. So Francis Ngannou made more money in 2 boxing matches and 1 fight in the PFL probably than he did his entire UFC career. In fact, given that he fought Fury and Joshua, I'd darn near bet money on it that he made between the 2 boxing bouts and the PFL fight. We're probably talking what? Around 40 million ish, somewhere in that ballpark, I think. Might be closer to 30, but still, like, that's more than he would have made his entire UFC career. I feel pretty darn confident in that. So, oh no, my legacy. Whatever will I do? Let me just dry my tears with money, which is what matters in this. This is a business. I mean, not to delve too deeply into this, but somebody just kind of got after a professional wrestler, Angel Garza, who recently re-signed with WWE. Somebody asked him, like, man, you could have been like in Arena Mexico having these great matches. Said you're back in WWE. And his response was, if I were in Arena Mexico right now, where he's worked, the lucha scene, I'd be making about 1/10 as much money as I am right now. Like, the money is what matters. This is a business. I treat it as such. I got the best offer for my services. If a time comes when my lack of artistic fulfillment outweighs the money, I'll reconsider. Until then, money. Why I do this? This is a job. I'm not here to put on banger matches. I'm here to collect a paycheck. If I can have great matches and express myself creatively and be creatively fulfilled as well as financially stable, that's the ideal. But at this point in time, I'd rather be financially stable. And that particular metric might change for him or anyone else. Sometimes you need to go be creatively fulfilled instead of, and maybe that means less money, but that's worth it to you. Okay. No shame, no shade. But Ngannou being like, oh, your legacy's in tatters. My legacy is my bank account, and it's fat. I'm not going to try to pander to UFC fans who, can't tell me who I even beat to become champion. I think that's not a thing, guys. The MMA fandom has goldfish brain. It's a real problem, and I wish we could fix it, but there we are. So that's the state of things coming out of that. So we're a little over the 90-minute mark. I'm going to check the old social medias, and if there's nothing new there pertinent to anything we're talking about, I will do plugs and get out of here and just say thank you again for listening. Live or after the fact, I appreciate the heck out of you. Okay. Let's have a look here. Here's some cool controls. That is the finish to something else. Alrighty. I don't think my feed at the moment is a ton of Oscar related stuff. So I don't think. Sorry, funny joke there. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, you're out of your mind. No, Oppenheimer, Honora, and One Battle After Another is not an unusually strong run of Best Picture winners. Honora shouldn't have won. One Battle After Another was pandering shit. Sorry, I had a whole thing on that. Listen to my movie review podcast if you want to hear, if you want the specifics on that. Okay, I don't think there's anything new here. So, yeah. Alrighty. I don't think I have anything new there. So let's get into plugs and then get out of here. Okay. So for plugs, speaking of movies, Monday on Damn You Hollywood, we'll be talking about Maggie Gyllenhaal's feature directorial debut, The Bride. Mark managed to avoid this atrocity by taking his family on vacation, and God bless him. I will be reviewing it alongside Alexis Hana and Kat. What is her last name? I don't remember. Let me see if this will tell me. Scott? I think that's right. Okay. So we'll be talking about The Bride. It's awful. Don't watch it. Watch the podcast. Don't watch the movie. God, it's terrible. I don't want to spoil the review, but it's one of the worst things like ever. It's so bad. Tune in for that. After that, do I have anything else this week? I don't think so. That's not me. I think that's all for my extra podcasts. So Friday, WWE SmackDown. Saturday, UFC Fight Night 270, Evloev versus Murphy. Both of those are in the wrestling and MMA zones of 411mania.com. If you're here, you should know that. Go check those out. I always appreciate it. Of course, like the video if you feel it deserves it. Leave a comment. If you come by live, I tend to go live around 2 a.m. Eastern these days. I'm going to try and make that slightly more reasonable. But, if you're New Zealand, Australia, I'm probably right in your sweet spot there. So stop by. Always appreciate the heck out of you guys. And next week, we'll be back here to review the Evloev and Murphy card. And over there, we will be previewing the UFC's return to Seattle, Washington. They were back there last year, but that was one that broke a long drought. Headlined by Israel Adesanya and Joe Pyfer. What else is on this card? Alexa Grasso, Macy Barber. It's relevant, but I don't care. Julian Erosa. Oh boy, this goes off the deep end fast. Abdul Malik and Yasri Balgori. Terrence McKinney and Kyle Nelson. That'll be fun. Terrence McKinney's never in a boring fight, if nothing else. Ignacio Bahamondes and Tafik Masayev. That's not bad. Chase Hooper's usually okay. Casey O'Neill and Gary Elfring don't care. Navo Sterling is light heavyweight. Tainara in Brazil is whatever. Shukangi and Mario. Marcin Tabora's fighting. God help us. Ricky Simone and Adrian Yanez. All right. Michael Chiesa needs an opponent. That is not a super strong card. You've got Adesanya and Pfeiffer there largely to sell tickets. Wait, Brazil and Tainara and Brazil's a rematch. Oh wait. Ugh. Tabor was supposed to fight Walter Walker. That would have been okay. Carlston Harris was supposed to fight Chiesa. That would have been moderately interesting. Chiesa's trying to retire, and he just wants to do it in the Pacific Northwest where he's from. So they got to get him somebody. Yeah, that's okay. This is not a super strong card. It's not terrible. There's clearly a lot of stuff on here that I'm not super excited about, but I don't know. I might feel differently about that next week. I reserve the right to change my emotional response when it's not, 2:30 in the morning my time. All right, that's going to do it for me. So we'll give that a full preview next week. Hope you all come back. That's it. Thank you all very, very much for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Again, like, comment, subscribe. I'm not used to doing this only for YouTube yet, so I have to add to my repertoire of boilerplate, hit the bell icon for notifications. Please do it. Or don't. Look, man, I can't control you, and frankly, I wouldn't even if I could. I find that to be an ethical and logistical nightmare. But I'd appreciate it. So any and all of that, of course, is appreciated. See y'all next week. Until then, stay safe out there and continue to be well, be safe, and behave.